Hi, welcome to the 13th floor. I'm Marty Duda. Today we have with us Hammond Gamble. Welcome, Hammond.
How are you, Marty?
Good to see you.
Good to be here.
Yeah. I think I've been seeing you perform live at various kind of tributes and things over the past couple of months, so it's good to actually sit down and talk to you.
Well, it's good to be here. Sorry, some of those things have been a bit sad to be at, with playing at tributes for people that have been ill or passed away or something.
Yeah.
It's what happens when we get older,
I guess
isn't it?
at least we're still here.
Yeah, that's the good thing about it. We're still here.
Yeah. So the reason that we're talking is because you're involved with well, it's not exactly a new project. It's got a new name. You're in a band called The Disappointments.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is essentially you and Brett Eccles and Andy McDonald,
That's right.
who were all members of Street Talk at one form or another back in the 70s and 80s. So I guess the first obvious question is, why didn't you just call it Street Talk?
Street Talk had a few different people in it. Me and Andy started it in '74. Brent joined in '75 after a few changes, and the recording, the version of Street Talk that we did a couple of albums with and some singles included different people.
Right.
That it just didn't seem like the right thing. I don't really like looking back and doing that kind of thing either, you know.
Right.
It didn't seem like, without having the people that were there when we did the records for which we were better known back then. Anyway, we were laughing around and it's acting the goat about what we should call the bloody outfit if we did some recording, because we hadn't planned to do any really, and then we just came up with a disappointment, so we just...
It hasn't been used yet, right?
No, we thought, I don't know. I saw on the internet, there's a big film called The Disappointments. I haven't seen it, but I've seen it.
I'll have to check it out now. Yeah. So what was the inspiration to get this recording together? What brought you guys?
Well, Brent came back from overseas. He'd been a manager and a drummer overseas and he came back from Australia, I think about 2000, 17 or 18 years ago.
Because he was playing with, the Angels, right?
Yeah. And he came back and he'd got me to do some supports. I did quite a few international supports for various people over the years, and he got me to do a couple of them, and so I ran into him quite a lot. Then I saw this actually in a promo thing from Nicole or something, but when we did one for C6 Steve.
Oh, right. C6 Steve,
which I can only kind of remember a bit of, but we did that with Andy, me and Brent, just the three of us, and then I think Brent just said we should do some recording, and I just kind of thought, oh yeah, sure.
Yeah.
You know, what's the point kind of a thing. But then he started bloody he had a drum kit set up in his house, and he had it connected to his phone, you know, GarageBand, and he was recording himself and just sending me him playing the drums by himself, and said turn him into a song, which I thought was a bit hard to do. But anyway,
starting with the bare bones.
The first one I did was I turned it into a 6/8 blues. It's on the album. It's called oh God, which one is it? You Think You're So Wrong. Is
You're So Wrong.
Yeah. That was the first one I did, and then maybe with all these different drum tracks he sent me, maybe I wrote about, I don't know, there'd be 15 or 20 maybe. Some of them weren't any good, and so we drossed it down, you know, and picked the ones that were best, kind of thing. And then we went into the studio and recorded them, and because we talked about it, you know, and he says, well, we might as well, you know, sometimes you've just got to give it a shot anyway. So we rehearsed them up at home, and then we recorded it and put it out. That's that.
You recorded just around the corner here at Roundhead?
Yeah.
So how did those sessions go? Were they pretty
great?
quick?
Yeah, it's a great studio, you know. So no, that was good. We didn't do long days. We didn't do that many days at all. I can't remember how many we did. I think we might have done 2 days one week or something, and a couple of days the next week or something.
Right.
But we were sort of like learning them as we went a little bit, you know, arrangement-wise and all that. But they came out all right, I think. And now, because we're having a launch for it,
Yes.
Now we've had to learn them properly.
Yeah, so you have one show scheduled at the Tuning Fork on April 25th.
Yeah, Anzac Day.
Anzac Day. And you're promoting it as kind of a buck a head thing where it's only going to cost $1 to get in, is that right?
Yeah, that's right, because Radio Hauraki, that's helping us with it, promote it, they used to do things called a buck a head in Albert Park and also at some theatres that sadly aren't with us now. Actually, the first one I know Street Talk did was June the 1st, 1975, because I've still got the T-shirt. Because they put out T-shirts with it, and that was kind of a big deal for us back then. But so they were doing quite a lot of them, and that was a great theatre that went down to the Wrecking Ball. You know?
Stuff doesn't
I think
survive.
we did a couple there, and maybe at Mercury Theatre as well.
Yeah.
And then they had them in the park some days, you know.
So what kind of turnouts did you used to get for these things back in the 70s?
Oh, they were. Hauraki was really king of the heap because there wasn't. I don't know how many radio stations there in Auckland. Must be about 30 or something.
They were.
You
I
know,
think Auckland holds the record for the most radio stations
per capita.
Per capita in the
It
world.
wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
But Hauraki, it was kind of like Hauraki against the world in them days. There was the government stations and Hauraki, and all young people pretty much listened to Hauraki. So they were really well attended. They were all like sold out. You know, those things. You know,
and did you get
a dollar?
Even
then, a dollar wasn't that much. Even then, and
you guys make any money on those shows?
no, and now dollars. I don't know. If people get along to our gig and say, "I haven't got the buck," say, "Well, forget it. Come in anyway."
Well, the Tuning Fork holds, I think, around 350 people or so.
Does it?
So
Good.
Should be able to at least make some money for dinner the next day or something.
Back in the day, though, even in the hotels and the places we used to play at, they were well attended because back then in Auckland, along Ponsonby Road, for an argument's sake, you know, there was Ivan's Fish and Chip Shop open. Kind of, I think it might be where the Chapel Bar is now. It was one of them ones on the corner.
Right.
And that was the only place that was open after 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
So all of those restaurants and places where people can go and listen to sounds or chat and talk to people, blah, 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 none of them were there. So the pubs, the half a dozen pubs in Auckland that did live music all the time were just full of university students and young people in general because there wasn't anywhere else to go. Mm-hmm. There really wasn't, you know.
So you think some of those same folks are going to show up here on Anzac Day?
Yeah, if they're still living.
And the sound of the album, it's pretty much straightforward blues kind of vibe that you got going on there?
Yeah. It's simple, a bit of melody mixed with old sort of rock blues stuff, you know. I think it sounds sort of commensurate with our age a little bit.
Right.
Yeah.
Didn't decide to make an electronica album?
No. No, we were going to do a rap one.
Yeah, that would be something.
No. It kind of sounds like. I kind of think, well, I've got older, I can see how many millions of records you've got, and you must be au fait with so many different music styles, but I've sort of tried to keep abreast of the times, and in a funny sort of a way, I find it hard to like a lot of stuff. Like, if I listen to sort of early Stevie Wonder and Aretha records, or the Beatles, or whoever, I used to love those records to bits, you know, as soon as I heard them. And now, things don't hit me like a ton of bricks.
I've been thinking about that a bit, and I think the way that people listen to music and the way that people make music is very different. Yeah, it's not song oriented as much as it used to be. Like like you say, you get a new Beatles record, a new Stones record, and those songs hit you right away. Whereas here, it's more about the vibe and the feel, and then the songs kind of seep in if they're there, you know, kind of later on, which makes it it's a different experience.
Yeah. But I think maybe you just get a bit set in your ways. I sound like I'm older or something, but you know, you just get a bit set in your ways, I think, you know. Yeah. And maybe to some degree, you just never quite escape the kind of thing that you did, you know, because that doesn't sound that much different. I agree. Right.
And I think, I don't know about you, but me, I'm always looking for that rush of hearing that great song for the first time, you know, and it's like, oh man, I get this new one from Led Zeppelin, let's put that on and see what happens, you know.
Yeah, that seldom happens to me now. Some things do, but not very often, you know.
Yeah.
I like kind of weird sort of things sometimes. Some of the Adele stuff I really like, you know. So, no, but you wouldn't think I would. And some of that, a couple of those songs that Lord put out, I like them too.
Right.
I really like. There's an album of Gin Wigmore's. We've got a couple of them at home. I really like that. I think her records are real good.
She just got a new one. Just came out last week, I think.
I think the last one we got was called Gravel and Wine.
Right,
you know?
yeah.
I really like that. I think that's good. Went to see her live at the power station. I thought she was great.
Yep.
You know.
She usually has Brett Adams in her band with a guitar. He's amazing.
Yeah, he's amazing. I know Brett. Yeah. He just about plays with everybody, doesn't he?
He does, yes. Well, he was playing at that the Hello Sailor thing at the power station that you played at, right?
Yeah.
Everybody knows everybody.
Yeah.
And I can't. So before we wrap up, I have to at least get one, because we do have a mutual acquaintance, the late great Kim Fowley.
Oh, you're right.
Who I worked with and met back in the early '90s, and you worked with in '79 with Street Talk. So. Just give us a little anecdote about your days with him.
Well,
I always love it. There's always some new and ridiculous story.
He was a bit mental, it seemed to me. He got to Auckland, which we learned later. Well, he told us later that he came here to escape America because the CIA was after him. Something to do with his wife or something. I didn't get it.
Yeah.
Or he'd been canoodling around with somebody and her rich father didn't like it.
Because if I remember correctly, he told me that he came down to this part of the world because he had made honeymoon arrangements to come here, but then he and his wife split up before they got down here.
That was something to do with it, and that's why he said the CIA or something was after him, because he'd been with somebody else, and the father-in-law, you know, they had broken up. I forgot about that. Anyway, I think really we'd done a single with Chris Hillman from the Byrds in the beginning. That's the first single we ever did, and I kind of think Kim's interest in us. I mean, he rang me up straight away, and he genuinely said he liked the sound of my voice and all that. But I also think a part of it was he was looking through all these New Zealand records made by little independent labels he'd never heard of, and then he saw. I think the first single might have been on Electro or Asylum. It was one of the big Warner things, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that took his fancy a bit.
Plus, he
too.
knew he had worked with the guys in the Byrds before. He'd written a couple of songs with them. So he was kind of
that's true.
He probably saw Chris was getting in on something, and he wanted
to. he used to be in the studio. I'm not kidding you. At 9 o'clock in the morning, and have us in there, and we'd have only just finished like 2 or 3 o'clock the previous morning.
Yep.
So the week we did the record was like 5 days. I think we did it, the whole thing, mixed and everything, in about 90 hours or something, or 100 hours or something. And we were there, oh, Jesus, did he push us along, you know. and there was no stopping or anything for break. He'd get things like rotisserie chickens and on a newspaper in the studio floor and just tear them all to bits and like grab bits each. And, you know. No, he was a very clever man, but a little bit weird. But he did a lot of things. He was a go-getter, you know, one of these kind of perhaps overachieving types, you know.
Definitely.
You know.
Yeah, I remember he used to call me in the middle of the night, at like 3 in the morning, and talk for hours, and then I'd fall back asleep. I'd wake up. Did I dream that conversation, or did it really happen?
When he finally got hold of the phone services here, he gets hold of it. He'd rung up people like Biggenheimer and all these people, the promotions in radio people, and then he got hold of Springsteen on the phone and all that sort of stuff. And he's got a quote on the record. This record sounds great, or something like. Kim says, "It's Kim Fowley. I'm in New Zealand. Listen, just say this record is good, okay?" What are you doing, ringing me up like this? Just say it's good. Okay, it's good.
I can just hear that. Fantastic.
Oh, they were good times.
Yeah. Well, this should be a good time out at the Tuning Fork, and the record is out in a couple of days as well. So people who still pay for this kind of stuff.
Oh, that's right. Well, hopefully a few of them will.
Yeah.
The record. It's. I think it might be made now. I think it must be anyway. It's got the lyrics and all that sort of stuff. So it'd be good if people want to get down to the Tuning Fork Anzac Day. I think it's 8 o'clock.
Very good. We'll be there. Thanks for coming.
Lovely to talk to you, Matty.
Yeah.